Tonight's episode, we break down the criteria of the categories of what you need to succeed here in real estate. So strap in. It's going to be a very unique episode of Real Estate Renegades because I am almost on holidays. Not quite, but almost. That didn't stop me going through some of the key analysis of what you need to do to kick butt in real estate. Welcome. You want the normal real estate training you've been told a million times? Make cold calls, knock on doors? Best be switching off now, because in this podcast we go out of the box using unknown tactics, primarily that the real estate industry's never heard of, in order to get you called in more often, convert those listings, and get more success without the painful cold calling. Listen up, we're in for a ride. This is Real Estate Renegades. Once again, even this holiday episode brought to you by agentprospecting.com.au. So if you're not wanting to do that prospecting stuff, if you're wanting us to do your lead generation and your prospecting for you, and when I say us, I mean fully trained in telemarketing, fully trained in Facebook lead generation, appraisal lead generation. If you want all of that taken off your plate and handled for you, just go to agentprospecting.com.au, where either me or Naomi or both of us will jump on the phone with you. We will have a one-on-one chat and we'll just see whether it's right for you. The cost is very, very affordable. So if that's of interest to you, do go to agentprospecting.com.au. But for now, on with tonight's episode. All right, recording on this computer. So welcome to this week's episode of Real Estate Renegades. I am doing it solo because I'm here in a place called Mullumbimby and Naomi's over in Perth. I've got my kids. So sort of equidistant between my parents in Southeast Queensland, my kids in Coffs. Grabbed a place in Mullumbimby. If I could show you, it's nighttime. So if I could show you though, I'd show you this view that we've got. It's amazing. But anyway, so tonight's episode is running solo. But what I do have is I have 2 pages of notes that I took because what I was thinking was, and I'm going to be running through what tonight is going to be, what this episode is going to be. It's going to be a checklist, if you will, of the things that you need to get right in order to have a bulletproof business. Because here's what I was listening to some of the more recent episodes, like with Vivian Yap, and it was her in particular that I was watching her episode of Real Estate Renegades. If you haven't watched it, go back 2 episodes and have a look at Vivian Yap. Amazing, amazing woman. And what I was looking at with Vivian's episode was just how bloody good she is and how good she is compared to a typical real estate agent. And believe me, I was one of them that really isn't much better trained than just being a nice guy. In the case of me, I was kind of a nice guy. And that's look, a lot of people got into real estate, maybe in the early 2000s or something like that. And you could get away with just being nice, nice guy, nice girl, charismatic person somewhat. And you could get away with listing and selling some property. And then when you look at someone who is as highly skilled as a Vivian Yap and many of the other multi-million-dollar performers that we've worked with around the country, those attributes that have these guys earning $1 million plus, they, in my opinion, are going to be just the norm if you want to be a listing and selling real estate agent. The days of just turning up and earning $400,000 a year, think about how much that is compared to every other vocation in the world. And yet here in real estate, it is not that hard to work hard and earn $400,000. And I do believe it is going to get harder and harder and harder to earn the sort of money that historically we've enjoyed for the last couple of decades. So what I did was I mapped out what I think you're going to have to get right. So here's what I would suggest you do. Get yourself a pen and paper, write down these headings like I've got here, give yourself a score. Now, for some of the guys I work with more closely, I'm going to be doing this and we're actually going to be giving ourselves a score and then moving forward on rectifying and say, for example, in marketing and or prospecting in that category, our guys are at a 2 out of 10. We'll be putting plans in place to take that to a 7 or an 8 or a 9 out of 10. But the first thing we've got to do if we're going to, put these plans in place and do better is we have to know where we're at. If you want to get here to Mullumbimby, then if you're going to follow a map, then the first thing you've got to do is you got to know where you're starting, right? Because no map's any good unless you know a starting point. All right. So This will be, I would suggest, in my coaching world, that this is going to be honed and made a little better. But the first, and how many big rocks are there? So there's 6. I've got 6 overall categories that everything you need to do at a 10 out of 10 level. If you can do all these things at a 10 out of 10 level, game over. You'll be earning as much money as you want to earn here listing and selling some real estate. Look, let's start at the first one. Now, the first one's a bit soft, so don't tune out just because the first one you might roll your eyes and go, right? We're going to get onto marketing. We're going to get onto prospecting. We're going to get onto listing presentations and what to say, scripts, dialogues, all those things. But the first thing is mindset. If you don't have your mindset in the right place, it's going to make all of the other, call them pillars, call them segments, call them whatever you want to call them. It's going to make it all harder. Now, it won't be the be all and end all. Like if you've just got a great mindset, but have no skill, have no marketing, have no conversion skills, have none of the other stuff, then the best mindset in the world, really, it's not much different than the worst mindset in the world, because you're not talking to anyone because you've got no marketing and prospecting in place. So you can be as fired up as you want. And I'm not even saying you need to be bouncing off the walls with enthusiasm either. What I am saying is, look, I just took a few notes with what you might want to give yourself a score on in the world of how you wake up. Have you got morning rituals and things like that? So with mindset, give yourself a score. Like, do you find it hard to drag yourself out of bed every morning? Or do you find yourself bounding out of bed, ready and excited because you've got these grandiose goals that you're chasing? They mean something to you and you're running after them like your life depends on it, because you've sort of convinced yourself that your life does, that if these goals, if these things, if they mean enough to you, then your life, if you want to call it that way, it's not your physical existence. You can still survive, but your life, the life worth living, is worth chasing, because you've got these big. So do you have goals? That's the first thing. Do you have goals? And the second thing that's attached to that is, do you have either a positive or a negative or both, sort of a reinforcement system in place? So overall, if you were giving yourself a score, just give yourself a score on mindset out of 10. I'm going to go through. Now, you don't have to have some of these little subsections that I'm sort of going to just go through quickly here. But these are some of the ways that if you're at a 2 out of 10, you could put these little subsections in place and they would give you some ideas as to how to get that up, get that to where it needs to be, or at least better than it is now. If you're at a 2 out of 10 because you're having a tough time and COVID hasn't been well, you haven't seen kids or whatever it might be, that it's been tough for you, and you're at 2 out of 10, then don't think you're going to go to 8 out of 10 tomorrow listening to this podcast, So the first subset, the first idea that you might have, other than having a goal that means something to you, that you actually want, that is worth you giving up some convenience for, is, I don't know what the wording I might use for it, but it's either having a positive or a negative system in order to reinforce your goal, or both. And what I mean by that is, it was Tony Robbins that said that we do everything in our world, everything, for one of 2 reasons. One is to get away from something that's yucky, move away from pain, as Tony calls it, or move towards something pleasurable, right? So that's the twin motivating forces that govern every action we take or every action we don't take, depending on whether or not we perceive at a deep unconscious level whether that will be moving towards something we want or moving away from something we don't want. So have you got a system in place that when you've got to, say you break down your numbers, and certainly that's part of this, you've got to know what to do every day. I think, that's part of mindset. I've got that as one of my bullet points. Know exactly what you've got to do. So say you know exactly what you have to do to make your goal happen, whatever that target might be. And that consists of some things that are, that you'd rather be watching Netflix. You'd rather be watching the latest movie. You'd rather be binging another season of Game of Thrones. Whatever it is, you'd rather be doing something pleasant than doing this task that you must do every day in order to make this goal happen. Well, have you got a thing that'll make the not doing of that unpleasant thing even more unpleasant than the unpleasant thing? What I mean by that is, there are some people that set a negative reinforcement goal to get that twin forces of moving away from something unpleasant working in their favor. What I mean by that is, and I've done this, there was a check for $5,000 written by me, made out to another speaker, a good guy, right? He's, he was a speaker and he was sitting there doing a seminar, and I was the speaker after him. And he had this entire head office pumped. He was sitting there, do you mean it? Have you set your goals? And they're all pumped. They're all punching the air and they're all doing all this. And I'm sitting there, I'm taking notes. It was a good speech. And we're all writing down our goals. And then he said, now, do you really want them? And they say, yeah. And they're all pumped. And he says, but do you really want it this time? Do you mean it this time? Because you know how many times you've let yourself down. And they're all saying, yeah, we're with you and all that. And then he says, righto, write me a check for $5,000. Here's my address. Send it to me. And when you hit your goal, I'm going to burn your check. If you miss your goal, I'm going to bank it, right? Out of a room of about 100 real estate agents that were all punching the air saying they really, really were serious about their goals, 2 people in that room wrote a check for $5,000 and sent it to him. 2, me and their number 1 performer at that time, right? So 98% of the people said they were serious, but didn't trust their own behaviors on a day-to-day basis in order to do it. And what I can promise you, Matt Steinway has done this, Jay Stanley has done this, $2 million performer from over in WA. Him and Vivian Yap often go neck in neck for the number 1 spot in WA, Jay Stanley. So as I said, Matt Steinway's done it, Danelle Weissman has done it. Everyone, by the way, who's done this sort of set yourself up with a punishment if you don't do your daily activities or hit your goal, which will lead to your daily activities. Everyone has always hit their goal. I've never seen anyone miss when doing this. And yet the courage that it takes to do that particular sort of activity, it's tough. You know, it's tough. Like I said, 2 out of about 100 people did it. And one of them was the speaker that was coming on next. And that was me. I hit that goal, months and months ahead of schedule, because what happened at an unconscious level, even though I liked this speaker and still do, even though I liked him and really he helped me hit that goal by setting that challenge, I still didn't want him to have my $5,000. And so I worked my butt off. And don't worry about the goal, because often when people hit these goals, the goals they're hitting are far, far, far beyond a few $1,000s if there was a punishment there. You know, goals might be in some cases in real estate. If these goals are monetary, then there's hundreds of thousands of dollars that are being earned, and yet we'll do more to not lose a $5,000 punishment than we will to earn a $200,000 bump in our income. It's fascinating how our brains work. So have you got something in place? Now, of course, some people are more motivated to do these unpleasant things by the reward that it's going to get them. So what I've definitely heard of some people doing is setting both of them. A reward when they hit the goal, a punishment if they miss the goal. So now they've got both those twin forces working in their favor. And you've got to know yourself to know what is going to get you right in that zone so that you're not fighting against yourself to even do what you know you're supposed to do, you know. So I mentioned the thing before. I'll go straight to that bullet point. I'm jumping a few, but it's knowing exactly what to do. So we haven't gone through this in great detail in this podcast, nor are we going to now, but knowing exactly what to do means reverse engineering your numbers. So say you're what you want to do monetarily, because that's the scorecard that we sort of base it on. And when we're self-employed like we are, we understand that, it's up to you how much you earn. It's up to you when you work. There is no glass ceiling on what you earn. There is also no glass floor on what you earn. What that means is you could earn $0. You could earn negative dollars, because we all have expenses no matter how much we earn, because you're working for yourself. So whether you earn $0, whether you earn $2 million, that's all up to the activities you take. So what you need to figure out is, what do you want? And then reverse engineering it based on the mathematics and the percentages as to what that's going to take on a daily basis. So the quick version is, if you want to earn $500,000 and each of your commission checks are worth $10,000, then you've got to work out based on your splits. If you want 500,000, you might be on a 50-50 split. That means you've got to do $1 million in GCI to get your 500,000. Then how many listings is that going to take that sell? So you've got to figure out, right, that's 50 sales. So that might be 55 listings. So that might be 250 listing opportunities. whatever it might be based on your numbers and your percentages. But say it's you need 250 listing opportunities or appraisals, let's say, and 1 in 5 of those appraisals is a listing, then you're going to need to do, if that's 250 in a given year, say you're working 50 weeks out of the year, then what do you need to do? You need to do 5 a week. So every single day you need to be doing an appraisal. Now, I've just done the quick version of that based on some hypothetical numbers I just made up, but you need to know each and every day what you need to do. And based on the numbers I just mentioned, that might be 1 appraisal. And given that I mentioned the numbers of 1 in 5 turns into a listing, you got to adjust that accordingly at every step of those ratios, what your numbers are. All right. So certainly knowing exactly what you need to do and then setting a target based on those, a goal based on those. And then if you set a positive or a negative reinforcement system, you're going to be in pretty good stead for rocking. What I would suggest though, with those negative, especially the negative goal setting tactics, where there's a punishment for not doing, I would recommend basing it on a KPI, on a number, on a statistic, on a measurable that isn't the monetary end goal, but it's the activity that you've got direct control over that you measure. So for example, how many appraisals do you do? You've got direct control over that, because with the right scripts and the right dialogues, you can work each and every day until you drop. And you've got direct control whether you finish at 5 p.m. or 10 p.m. doing the work that it takes to book 1 appraisal. You've got direct control over that. Getting a sale in a given week, you've only got indirect control over that, but you've got direct control over things like connected phone connections or phone calls or whatever the case may be. So, so it's kind of some of the help and the tips around mindset. You know, some of the others might be educating yourself. I personally get very motivated when I learn some things that are a little bit out of the box, that are a little bit unique, that are not known by the rest of the real estate industry. I get really fired up by educating myself, by listening to podcasts like this, by training, by buying audio programs, by listening to people in the marketing world, which is kind of the world I play, you know, my business in. I really get fired up when I study. It's weird. Didn't at school. I kind of phoned school in, but now that really gets me fired up. So whatever gets you fired up, whether it's motivational, educational, etc., you've got to figure out what works for you to get you in the right frame of mind. So that's the first one. Goodness, I don't even know how long we've been going on this, but this might be 2 podcasts. We might do 3 this week and 3 next time we catch up on my little list here, because that's only 1. All right, so give yourself a score on mindset. How do you go? Do you get rattled easily? Do you get upset easily? You know, or if you do get upset, does that fuel you to do more? Whatever it takes, that your mindset is in a place that is conducive to you hitting your targets. Then we need to be giving ourselves a score of how our head dictates our behavior, and does our behavior take us towards or away from where we're saying we want to get to. All right, pillar number 2. It's all in one, even though it probably should be 2. And I've got written down here, marketing and prospecting. So this is a really, really easy one to give yourself a score out of 10 on. So say on a fortnightly basis, look, the example we just used, you need to get 5 appraisals a week in order to get the goal that we've set. So that means we need to get 10 appraisals a fortnight. So how do you measure your score out of 10 in marketing and prospecting? Well, say you needed to get 10 appraisals in a fortnight. How many appraisals did you get in the last fortnight? How many appraisals did you get in the fortnight before? Make yourself an average over the last 8 fortnights, and say you got 2 last fortnight, 10 the fortnight before, 4 the fortnight before, and you averaged out 2, 4, and 10. Well, it's 10, 16 divided by 3. It's about 5. You're at about a 5 out of 10, because over the last 3, 4 fortnights, you've only averaged 5 appraisals a fortnight, and you need 5 a week. So you're only at half capacity. You need to get 10 appraisals a fortnight. So 10 out of 10 would be the exact amount. I know I'm probably confusing you. I'm confusing myself. What I'm saying is figure out what percentage of your goal hitting activity as far as prospecting is concerned. Because if you need to get, 10 appraisals a week, for an example, the example we used before was 5 appraisals a week. But say you needed to get 10 a week to hit your goals, 10 appraisals a week, and you're only getting 7 appraisals a week, then you're at 7 out of 10. So work out what percentage of 100% you're getting in your current marketing, prospecting, and face-to-face activities, and that'll tell you. If you're getting all the appraisals and the listing opportunities you need to be in front of in order to hit your goals and you're on track, then you're 10 out of 10, right? You don't have to listen to anyone else what they want because it's based on what you want. So that's the easy part. So the question you would ask yourself is, have you got the listing opportunities? How did I word this? Yeah. So maybe work it out on a month. How many do you need in a month? Have you got the listing opportunities per month that you need to make your goals happen? That's the easy part. Now, once you decide what percentage, like if you're running it, you're getting 70% of the capacity, that's 7 out of 10. We need to figure out what you need to do extra above and beyond what you need to keep doing because it's working, what you need to start doing that you're currently not because you need to do more, what you need to stop doing because it's not working yet it's taking up time. You need to figure out what activities need to happen, increase, decrease, etc. What behavioral changes need to occur in order to get you into the amount of face-to-face appointments needed to make your goals happen. So in our little world, if you've been hanging around us for a while, you know that we break these things up into fishing, which is, dangling a piece of bait in order that the right person who you want to be talking to bites, there's farming, which is planting seeds along the way so that when people come along who need the services of listing, selling real estate agent, they call you. So there's farming. Then there's hunting, which is what we need to do in the early days of any career. You need to go and catch and kill the amount of listings that you need. So that's what traditionally we've called prospecting. You can imagine that's where you make 100 calls in order to find 2 people that say maybe. And by the way, that was the only way I was taught back in the early days of my career. I was only taught prospecting. So, there's that. Now, the next part of that, as you move forward, is outsourcing all of that. Using a service like the sponsor of this podcast, agentprospecting.com.au. It's a company myself and Naomi started. Agent prospecting actually for a nominal fee for about 1/3 of a wage, we do all your prospecting for you, right? So whether you farm it, fish it, hunt it, or outsource it, either way, you need to fix to get you in front of more people or enough people if you're currently not in front of enough people. You know what I'm saying? So if you're already in front of enough people, you're farming, you're fishing, you're hunting, whatever it is that you're doing, your prospecting and your marketing is doing its job. If you are not in front of the amount of people by whatever percentage, then you need to fix it and get it to where it needs to be. So it's an easy one to give yourself a score on. What percentage of your goal, target, number, and this comes back to, I was about to say, what percentage of your numbers are you hitting? If you don't know your numbers, if your goals are, oh yeah, I've heard this. I've said, oh, what's your target? Say, oh, a bit more. We could always do with a few more. If your goal is more, if your target is could always do with a bit more, I've heard that so many times. Oh yeah, could always do with a bit more. No, that is not specific enough. You're not going to get there. And you wouldn't even know if you did because you're not measuring it. So you need to know your numbers, and then you need to know at what capacity. Are you halfway towards your activity goals of what you need to be in terms of generating opportunities to have face-to-face appointments? All right. So next, you need brutal conversion systems, but it's another one that is really, really easy to give yourself a score on. So what I mean by conversion systems, how many face-to-face appointments were you in front of in the last month? If you were in front of 6 and you converted 3 of them, then you're at 5 out of 10, right? That's easy. It's just a percentage of how many listings did you get versus how many listing opportunities did you have. Now, no one's ever going to get to, well, rarely are you going to be at 10 out of 10. It's a great goal to chase. But if you get to 8 or 9 listing opportunities that go to the market list with you, you're doing fine by me. Work on the other systems if you're at 8 or 9 out of 10. If you miss 1 or 2 out of 10, that's probably inevitable. hard to win all the business. Possible, but difficult. Some of my students have had 100% market share in their farm area. It's just hard to maintain for an extended period of time. So, but if you can get your 8 or 9 out of 10, happy days, no further work needed. But if constantly, 1 in 2 of the people are going with a competitor, and they're not choosing you, or they're not doing it, then you need work on your conversion systems. If they're not giving you the seller marketing investment that you need, if they're driving you down on your commission splits, your price percentages, say you often charge 2.5% plus GST, and you're constantly having to match a price discount competitor of 1.5 or something, or 2 or whatever. Then we need to work on this. So you can't give yourself, even if you win them all by discounting down to 1%, that doesn't count. You've got to win them at the money you need to win them at in order to, to give yourself a 7 or an 8 out of 10. So work out that number and then decide, right, what do I need to fix? Do I need to fix my pre-listing process? Do I need a better pre-listing kit? Do I need a digital pre-listing kit? Do I need a good quality set of visuals in my listing presentation? What is it that's letting me down that they are going to my competitor? And I tell you, here's a way that you can do, you can ascertain how to improve this. With every single one of your listing opportunities, whether you win it or whether you miss, ask the person, if you win it, what was the sort of decision making? Now, sometimes they won't know, but what was the criteria that tipped you over the line as the one they chose? Sometimes they won't know, and they'll just say something nebulous like, it was just a feeling, you were so good, something like that. But if you can dig deeper and find out some specifics, that'll be meaningful for you, because you can do more of that. You know why it was they chose you. And similarly, if you missed, now here's the thing with if you miss, you've got to give them the permission, if you will, to tell you the truth. So, this might be a script. All right, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I really appreciate you even having me in. Thank you. And I do respect your decision to go another direction other than us. Can I ask, and please, you'd be doing me a disservice if you didn't tell me the utmost truth. Hey, I'm a big boy. I can take the criticism, but here's what I want to do. I want to rectify whatever I missed. Whatever it was that had you choose the other agent, I want to do more for my future customers so I never let someone down again, like clearly I let you down. So please be brutally honest with me and let me know, what were the criteria or the criterias, I think criteria is plural anyway. What were the criteria that you, one or more, that led you to choose, the Mark or whoever the other agent was? And please, just do me the one courtesy of being brutally honest, despite that it might hurt my feelings, because clearly I need them hurt. So please, just give it maybe something like that. And then you'll notice if you do that 20 times, both the winning ones and the missing ones, you will know a pattern of what your people kind of wanted from you that you did not deliver. Now you need to do everything to fix that. All right. So we need great conversion systems. That's pillar number 3. Give yourself a score. All right. Pillar number 4. I probably will get through these in this episode. Pillar number 4 is doing the job world class. So you've won the listing. All right. Now what? You need to do the job at a world-class level. So the 2 things I just took down in my notes there are your open for inspections and your negotiating system. And what I would also throw in there, your property marketing skills. Like if you don't have amazing, and wherever I put social media, I put it probably in the next one, and it should be in this one as well. How are your abilities to put properties in front of consumers? So here would be the categories in selling properties well. It's marketing, social media, it's copywriting, it's having a great photographer and you and your photographer working well together. If you're doing video, it's your verbal skills, so your copywriting skills delivered verbally. And if you're only doing the listings online, then it's your copywriting skills written. And certainly social media is a massive component of getting your properties in front of like multiple of 10x consumers on a per dollar spent than the major portals. So you need all of those property marketing skills at the highest of highest levels. So you want to give yourself a score there for sure. How good are you open for inspections? Now, we used to call our open for inspections virtual listing presentations, and certainly, now I know with COVID, there's been, different ideas around doing opens. I know there are some agents who have done, like even my man, Chris Gilmore, he was one of the foundational guys that grabbed the first program he ever bought of mine was how to do open for inspection so good you'll embarrass your competition, right? That was the first CD that Chris Gilmore bought of mine. And he had world-class open for inspections. Now, during COVID, he realized you didn't need open for inspections. You could sell properties without them. So he sort of stopped doing them. And that's fine if you're Chris Gilmore, because he's already at the end game, already built his database, already built his brand, already built his reputation. If you're still in the build a brand and build a reputation mode, one of the best ways to showcase your abilities, like I said, we used to call open for inspections virtual listing presentations, because if future sellers came in and they saw other agents that were all the same, and we secret shopped real estate agents, 150 of them we mystery shopped, and when you see them all as dime a dozen cookie cutter bad as virtually all of those 150 that we visited, and then you see one that is at a world-class standard, and you're thinking of selling, who the hell are you going to go with? You're going to go with that person without even thinking about it. You've already made up your mind based on what you saw at that open for inspection, where you stood out. And remember, this is what I just said, how to do an open for inspection so good, an open home so good that you'll embarrass your competition when your prospective clients compare you to them. All right? So we need that, right? Give yourself a score on your open houses. If they're the same as everyone else, you get a 4 out of 10. 3 out of 10. They got to be a cut above. All right. Your negotiation skills. Now, whether you are an auctioning agent, whether you do use things like open negotiation with those online bidding platforms, whether you do use one-on-one face-to-face negotiation, which is probably still my preference. We had mouse pads printed with this. Click from place to place. That means online is fine, but don't forget face-to-face. All right. So how are your skills in that? Give yourself a score. Great way to know is, do you constantly get killer prices? Are you constantly amazing your sellers with the prices they get? Are they buying you gifts? Some of my students have gotten their clients buying them gifts, thanking them. I know that we always talk about us, over delivering and buying wonderful gifts for our clients and buyers, our sellers and buyers. You're doing a good job when they reward you. And believe me, you saw that maybe how long ago, a couple of years ago now, when my clients chipped in and bought me a Harley Davidson to say thanks. Believe me, I know I'm doing a good job when they chip in and buy God knows how much the thing's worth, probably about 30 grand, and they give you a bonus above and beyond the fees they pay you. They give you a bonus like that. So are you doing a world-class job for your people in a monetary sense through your negotiation skills and your marketing skills? And certainly open houses fit into that. So give yourself a score on how you do the job once you win a listing. And then sort of number 5 is, it sort of almost goes back to the start, is what do you do for your people after the property sells, but before they need a real estate agent again? Because think about it, for about 5 to 10 years at a time, there's a stretch of time when they don't care about your ability as a real estate agent. So how do you go at keeping them knowing that you exist, right? Because most people don't know you're alive. What have you got in place to say to your community, hey, I'm alive, when they don't need you? All right. Now, most agents aren't good at that. I've even heard some of well, I'm not even going to, I don't, because I'm about to criticize this particular tactic, so I'm not going to name a name. But I saw a speaker speak, and it was at a corporate head office gig. And these were the words. It was, what people need in between real estate transactions, after they've sold, but before they need you again, 5 to 7 years later, they want data. They want to be kept informed as to what's going on in the market. And what I say to that person, in virtually every instance, there would be some very, very infrequent exceptions to the rule. But I say that's a load of rubbish. The people don't care one bit about what's going on in the market or the data or being kept informed about whether you've sold another property 8 streets away. Who cares? Not your consumers. That much I can promise you. So what do they care about? Well, they care about where they're going on the Easter holidays. They care about the Airbnb that they're staying at. They care about what they're going to feed their kids. And my kids have been remarkably well behaved. I have noticed them in the mirror in there, running around trying to be quiet while I'm recording this. That's what humans care about on a day-to-day basis. They care about you and your data and all of that rubbish. And here's how I can show this to you in a very demonstrable way. They care about what you're doing in real estate when they're not in real estate mode, as much as you care about what your accountant's competitor is doing when you're not in accountancy mode, which is most of your life. Like, how often do you think about your accountant, the accountant that you're working with? You think about them maybe once a year. If it's me, once a year when they drag me kicking and screaming along to talk to them. Some people think about them every quarter when they have their BAS or whatever. But you don't wake up every day thinking about what your accountant's doing, right? You never think about what your accountant's competition is doing, ever. You don't even know they exist. You don't know who they are. You don't know what they do. You don't know anything. You certainly don't care about what their research tells you about the latest tax deduction rulings from the ATO. You don't care one bit about that on a day-to-day basis. Well, nor do they care about the data of what you're doing, right? So you've got to figure out what they do care about and find a way to get noticed and known in their world when they don't give a stuff about your world. That's the thing, all right? So give yourself a score on how to do that. There's a million things we talk about doing that, but what do you do for them after and before the sale? Okay, we'll talk about that another time. That includes that after and before the sale, includes mastering your CRM. I will throw that in there. What's your score out of 1 to 10 on how to drive your CRM? So 10 means you can drive it like you programmed the CRM. 5 is you can upload a listing, you can input a client, you can input a buyer, input a seller, and you can add them to a category, right? That would be 5 out of 10, basic CRM use. 1 out of 10 is you can barely log in. So give yourself a score. You need to be 8 or 9 out of 10, period. Because if you're going to take advantage of what I call the future bank, meaning all the money, when you're doing say you're doing the numbers we talked about before, 5 appraisals per week, and 1 of them comes to the market, well, that means there's 4 that don't come to the market that need to go into a multimedia, multi-step CRM follow-up system that extends for years so that you can stay in touch with them. All right. So because there's 4 times the money in the follow-up, in the example I was giving, say there's $10,000 that you're going to bank by getting the 1 listing. Well, there's $40,000 that you've just banked in the future bank, depending on how well you stay in touch. So you need to be a master of that. All right. So CRM's in there. All right. And then the last one I've got is random but necessary, because this is a work in progress, these notes here. And the pillar 6 is random but necessary. And the only thing I've got in the random but necessary category at the moment is, have you got a PA or a team? Because you can't do everything. And in fact, I was saying this to one of my students the other day. I can't remember what it was, but I know I was talking about it recently, is there isn't one thing that is in the real estate business. Oh, I know who it was. I was talking to Silvio Bavacqua. For those of you guys in Queensland, you might remember Silvio's Pizza. He's the guy who founded Silvio's Pizza. He's been a friend. He's been a client. He's a great dude. He's been a student of mine. Yeah, Silvio's great. And we were talking a couple of days ago. He was actually at the park at Yamba that I was staying at with my kids. He was staying there a couple of doors down. So it was very coincidental to see Silvio. And yeah, we were talking about this, and we said to each other, name one task that you couldn't specifically and specialized train someone to do in listing and selling real estate, that you couldn't get away with paying them an hourly rate of, say, $40 an hour to do. There isn't a single task that either of us could name. That includes listing presentations. If you had a specialist listing presentation deliverer, the most you'd pay for that person, you'd get away with paying them $40 an hour. And you'd have a lineup of ex-agents that would be willing to do it. Right? And they would get so good at it, because that's all they've got to do. you could get away with outsourcing every single task in your business. So the question you might ask yourself in category 6, the random but necessary, is how's your team? If you're doing everything, what's the old saying I've been saying for about 10, 15 years? If you haven't got a PA, then for the time that you're doing the tasks that the PA would be doing, because I like to soften that a little bit, but the saying I used to say is, this is when I was a bit harsher, when I was a bit younger, I'd say if you haven't got a PA, you are a PA. Now, what I'm saying is for the time you're doing the PA tasks, then yeah, you're still your own PA. So stop being a PA, because PAs earn 40 grand a year, 50 grand a year or whatever. A good one, 80 grand a year. PAs don't earn $1 million a year. So that's all I've sort of got in category 6 for now, but it's a work in progress, so we'll get there. So there's the foundation, and I'm going to be working on this a little more, but what I would say to you is, if you're a listener to this podcast, you've come along for some solid content, start by knowing where you're at, giving yourself a score in how you think. And now, I'm not saying you need to be happy. I'm not saying you need to be positive. I'm not here to dictate any of that stuff. What I'm saying is, how does your brain affect your behavior, and how does that behavior take you towards your goal? Like, that's all I mean by mindset. I'm not here to say we need to be, like me, or like, Matt Steinway, or, because Matt's got a great mindset because he's, because he surfs, but that's right for Matt, might not be right for you. So how is your mindset serving you? Give yourself a score out of 10 on your mindset, and how that brain stuff dictates and maps to behavior. The next pillar, marketing and prospecting. Are you getting all the business opportunities you want? Don't worry about whether you convert them. Are you in front of enough opportunities to hit the goals that you've set? Are you converting? That's category 3. Give yourself a score. How are your opportunities to list versus the amount of listings you're getting? All right, that's category 3. Category 4, how are you, once you've got the listing, are you doing a world-class job? Open homes, negotiation, marketing of properties, all of those things, the doing of the job. Are you magnificent at that? Category 5 is after the sale and before the next one. Like, what do you do with the consumers that don't need you, which is most of your marketplace, most of the time. So what are you doing in that space? And category 6, at the moment, the only thing in category 6 is give yourself a score. If you've got no PA, you're at 0 out of 10. If you've got a bad PA, you're at 2 out of 10. If you've got a pretty good PA, 6 out of 10. If you've got a gun, you're at 8 out of 10, and you're building your next team or whatever the case may be. So there's today's Real Estate Renegades. Just a quick kind of a yarn and a kind of a setting of the we're laying out the war room, right? We've set out the maps. We've got our little pieces out there. We now know the categories that we need to attack. Now we can go and find the resources to fix whichever one of those categories and pillars, if you will, we might find lacking in our business. So once again, this episode brought to you by Agent Prospecting. So if you do want us to handle your agent prospecting for you, meaning cold calls and Facebook lead generation, just go to agentprospecting.com.au, and we'll see you on the next episode of Real Estate Renegades. Bye. Wow. Well, there you go. I hope you liked the episode. If you like that, then what you need to do is you need to subscribe. You need to get more of this craziness because we got more are coming. I'm never standing still, and we've got so many more guests. We've got so many more strategies, more out-of-the-box thinking. So if you haven't subscribed, literally, you're like throwing away thousands of dollars. Because I tell you, if you haven't subscribed, you don't come back. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to find you, I'm going to market to you, and I'm going to charge you for the very stuff that on this podcast we give away for free. So whack that subscribe button on whatever your favorite podcast weapon of destruction is, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.